in the building that I'm so eagerly waiting to play in. Just a little bored at times, stuff slow with trying to let my Achilles heal and get to the next stage, which is, mobility work. But I'm feeling good. I'm happy to be with my teammates. Obviously, unfortunately, I'm not playing. Kills me every day, but I'm planning on playing for a long time, and I don't want to, have any mishaps come this rehab.
You got to feel for Klay Thompson. Missing 2 seasons, expected to be back this upcoming season, obviously coming off that torn left ACL. Max, let me ask you this. Moving forward, are you going over, under 1.5 or more titles for Klay?
I'm going under. I'm going under because, look, I think Klay will be able to get back. You see what happened to Breanna Stewart and Kevin Durant recently. We've seen athletes come back from bad situations, the same injury, and still be really, really good. If not exactly themselves, but it's sort of like it looks like it. And maybe Klay can do that, but by then he'll be almost 32, and he'll take up an enormous percentage of the salary cap. Now, he will join Steph Curry as soon. By the way, if he doesn't get another catastrophic injury, knock wood, that doesn't happen, but it's 2 in a row now. Now, he'll join Steph Curry, as Stephen A. will call it, the greatest shooting backcourt will be back together. But guys, let's remember, the best version of that team pre-Kevin Durant was lucky to win 1 championship. Kyrie and Kevin Love both got hurt, or else they obviously lose to that Cavs team. They went 6 games without Kyrie or Kevin Love, with Dellavedova as LeBron's second-best player, Stephen A. And then the best version of that team possible, the 73-win team, lost to the Cavs. Then KD joined the team. It was over, right? But KD's gone. He ain't coming back. Now, they have a great front office, very savvy. Wiseman, and you see the effect that Steph Curry has. Wiggins is shooting from the outside. They'll probably be able to, if not turn those guys into great players, flip them into something. But Stephen A., by then, Draymond will be much older. Klay may not be exactly what he was in his very prime. Same thing with Steph. And even if they are, I have enough faith in them to think they're going to get back and win another championship. But more than that is asking almost for a dynasty again. I don't see that happening.
I do. And let me say this again. I loved watching Klay give his commentary and stuff like that. He was funny. And I loved when Steph got on him, and I loved when he got on that dude I think it was for the Pistons, that stepped out of pocket. I love stuff like that. Having said all of that, I have been on the record saying that Steph Curry is the greatest shooter known to man in the history of mankind. There has never been a greater shooter. Klay Thompson is one of the top 5 shooters in the history of basketball. Klay Thompson, if he never played another game, is a Hall of Famer. Klay Thompson going to Hall of Fame right now, without playing another game in his career. He is a Hall of Famer right now. And when I think about the 2 of these guys together, the marksmen that they were. Remember, Max, weeks ago we were having a debate and we were talking about Damian Lillard, who we both love. Dame Dollar, the man. Big time show against Chicago over the weekend, by the way. Dame Dollar against Steph Curry. And I talked about how Dame Dollar shot 40% from 3 last year. Steph Curry has done it for his entire career. You know who else has done it for his entire career? That would be Klay Thompson. All 8 years in the NBA, he has shot better than 40% from three-point range. He's got a 19-point career scoring average. He's averaged over 20 his last 5 years in the NBA. And by the way, Wiseman is a rookie averaging like 12 and 6. Max, he's shooting 40% from three-point range. He's hit 9 of his 22 three-pointers this year.
Wiggins is too.
Damn. I'm just saying, damn. It's like they got a contagious effect. Other than Kelly Oubre, because he can play, but they can't get him to shoot threes, right? But other than him, my God. Listen, I got news for you.
Steph creates space.
If Klay Thompson comes back healthy, and Steph Curry is healthy with Klay, and Wiseman and Draymond and them, I reserve the right to revisit this conversation about whether or not the Warriors are going to win the chip next year. I mean, immediately. That's how elite of shooters that they are. You can't teach this. You can't make it up.
Klay is tough as nails. Michael Thompson raised an old school throwback kind of tough as nails two-way player. There's no doubt about it. And here's a return of an oldie, Stephen A., from, a classic from my Greatest Hits Volume 1. You know who Coach Mackey at my daughter's skills development program, Steady Buckets, you know who he uses as a model to teach shooting more than anyone else by far is Klay Thompson. Klay's shot is studied by coaches teaching people how to shoot.
They can win the
Thank you for
chip.
extending the segment for that, Max. All right, we'll leave it there, guys. The Rams pay a head. They are 4 of the greatest basketball players ever, and Hoops, at HoopsPicks Only, tweeted out an interesting photo naming Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, and Steph Curry as the 4 most influential players over the last 3 decades. Many will argue the real debate would be over number 1 in that span, his airness or King James. So, Stephen A., talk to me. Who do you think has been the most influential during that time, LeBron or Jordan?
Well, I never ever put LeBron James ahead of Michael Jordan under any circumstances. But I must confess, in the aftermath of George Floyd's killing and all the social justice issues that have taken place, you start thinking about what the nation needs and what have you. It's not to say that Jordan was silent or voiceless, because he certainly was not. But LeBron being younger, being a part of today's generation with the advent of social media and beyond, taking into account his reach and his willingness to be a face and a voice to so many issues that are very, very pertinent in this nation right now and throughout the world right now, I would have to give him that edge. And I never, ever felt that way before until recently in terms of what's transpired. I always think about pioneers who've led the way, and you never want to dismiss their contributions before you take an opportunity to really appreciate and elevate someone else, because the pioneers who set the table play a profound role. Jordan making it acceptable. First, it started with Magic Johnson, with him and Larry Bird, and Magic Johnson and that magnetic smile, and his 5 championships, and being in 9 NBA finals, and ultimately becoming the incredible businessman that he became once his playing career was over. That paved the way for Jordan to take the world by storm, not just with Air Jordan and the aerial assault and the dynamics that he put forth on the court, but obviously he was the kind of guy that really elevated the NBA's mass appeal, not just appealing to a black audience, but appealing to the masses, which was former Commissioner David Stern's dream, to be quite honest with you. God rest his soul. And so you look at all of those different things and you want to give Jordan credit where credit is due. But then I think about LeBron and think about Ali in terms of when he donated money for the exhibit at the Smithsonian Museum, some of his, the school in Akron, and putting the underprivileged kids in Akron, Ohio through school along with their parents and what have you. His philanthropy, his charitable donations, his willingness to give a voice to the voiceless, and speaking on some of the issues that he's been willing to speak about. I just right now at this particular moment in time, I would have to say when you look at it in its totality, I've got to give it to LeBron James because of what has transpired in the immediate past per se.
I respect that, because LeBron James has absolutely led on social issues and has been, just because the circumstances are right for that now, and we're not as right in Jordan's day. Right. There were fewer media outlets. There wasn't social media, so the athlete wasn't as empowered independently as they are today. Nevertheless, LeBron didn't have to choose to be this way. He didn't have to automatically be this way. He chose to be this way and deserves a lot of credit. I would say that when you bring up Ali, there is a difference. Muhammad Ali was willing to make great sacrifice. And in terms of social justice, that's why he became an icon. When the cost started going up for social justice, Ali was willing to pay that premium. Same thing with Kaepernick. Kaepernick was willing to make a sacrifice. And it's been a little bit different for LeBron. The cost of social activism has not been as high for LeBron as for some others. So I don't think that he resonates as an icon in a social justice way, though the way Ali did, or to a lesser extent Kaepernick does, though he absolutely deserves tremendous credit for influence off the court in that way, no doubt. I still say the answer is Jordan here, Stephen A., because 30 years takes you back. to 91. Michael Jordan was, at the time, in the process of exploding the NBA and basketball into a worldwide phenomenon. Whether or not it had the biggest economy, it was the hottest sport and fastest growing sport in the world because of Michael Jordan. Even today, his Jordan brand stuff outsells LeBron's, like his sneakers, 5 or 10 to 1. Even today. And speaking of Jordan brand, Stephen A., when you talk about what occurred in the wake of George Floyd's murder, what happened right after that? You know who made the biggest corporate pledge? Jordan brand. $100 million over 10 years. So Jordan he exploded basketball. His style was emulated by everyone. Bigs face the basket now in terms of on-court style because everyone wanted to be like Mike. Kobe wore 24, one more than Jordan. LeBron wears 23, all that stuff. In addition, he became a billionaire and a team owner. So though the avenues for kind of influence were not the same as they are today for players in terms of social justice issues, and maybe Jordan didn't have that temperament that LeBron has anyway. In terms of overall influence on and off the court, I still believe Jordan has had the most in the last 30 years.
Well, certainly I'm not going to dismiss that because I think all your points are points I made in the past, and they're incredibly valid, and I get that. Not to mention the fact that the very brand that LeBron uses to really take his positions and really elevate it to another level is the brand that Jordan built, which was Nike. Jordan built that brand. So we have to make sure we give credit to Jordan for that as well. I just think that at this particular moment in time, when we talk about impact, there was a time that obviously I always thought that Jordan and others were unfairly maligned for not giving enough of a voice to issues because there are a multitude of ways to skin a cat. And there's so many things that he does behind the scenes on such an incredibly positive level that he should not have been maligned for it the way that people have tried to from time to time. But I think particularly in this day and age, when you consider LeBron's willingness to speak out on such issues and how we lean and depend on him so much to give a voice to a lot of different issues, when you're talking about impact, when you're talking about influence, those things can't be ignored either. And obviously, Jordan had a lot to do with facilitating LeBron being able to do that. So if that was a big reason as to why we want to give Jordan that edge, I'm all for that. But nevertheless, in this day and age, anytime an issue comes about, you're literally waiting to hear what LeBron has to say, particularly as it pertains to African Americans in this country, regardless of what the situation may entail, because he's that big of a figure in this day and age. And obviously the advent of social media may have something to do with that because Jordan didn't have that at his disposal. But nevertheless, I think those are the kind of things that has contributed to the prowess that LeBron James possesses at this particular moment in time. And that's all I'm doing. I'm saying that, you know what, I'll give it to him. But in the same breath, it's because in large part because of Jordan that LeBron is in this position. Because if Jordan hadn't done the things that you highlighted, Max, LeBron wouldn't be in a position to do what he's doing.
Sure. And in every era, there was no one in the 1950s in sports that was going to influence sports the way figures in the 60s and 70s could, simply because of the time. The time and the place allowed figures like Muhammad Ali to do things that probably would have been impossible, let's say, in the 1940s and 50s had he come along then. And the same thing with Jordan and LeBron. But something in LeBron's credit, to LeBron's credit, that must be said, and you've mentioned, you've alluded to it, is he has natural leadership qualities on social issues. He's able to express them and do it in a kind of big tent way. He doesn't do it with a kind of vitriol that turns people off. He does it in what athletes always like, that positive way. And he has a kind of real instinct for that. Like, he comes across like a leader who, if he wanted a role in politics after his career, could have it. It seems to me it would be available to him.
Fair enough. All right. Despite being retired for almost 20 years, Michael Jordan still polls as the most popular athlete in America. When we come back here on First Take.